All right. So welcome back for our final day of Lojong together. So point 7 is communicate from the heart. So now we come to the last 21 slogans that encourage us to communicate from the heart. And these also summarize what's important for our final day of training, kind of wrapping things up as well. So slogan 39, all activities should be done with one intention. So this again brings us back to our primary motivation in life. If we do everything in our lives with this in mind, it will orient us toward what we value most. It's like a compass for our lives. So Adyashanti says, this is one of my favorite quotes from him. He says, in the end, we all get what we value most. And if we don't like what we've gotten, we had better take an honest look at what we're valuing. So what is this one intention according to Lojong? It's to awaken the heart, to be kind to ourselves and to others in such a way that we overcome our self-centeredness and reactivity and live peacefully and harmoniously. But I actually encourage you to consider your own way of expressing this that's meaningful to you. Like, what's your personal, primary orientation in life, and whether it's a sentence or just a felt sense, so that you have an orientation that you personally believe in and can use it rather than needing to take on, that particular sentence or intention. So whatever, drives you, let that actually drive you instead of sort of going off track. Slogan 40, correct all wrongs with one intention. So the intention to awaken the heart, or whatever you chose from the last slogan, is the path to healing our lives. When we find ourselves lacking in kindness or generosity of spirit, we can remember our intention to overcome our self-centeredness and to live with an open heart. We can use the opportunity to cultivate deep compassion for all beings going through the same difficulties we are, and feel connected instead of alone. I think this is so important. When we get into tough times, it can feel like I'm the only person in the world going through this thing, when I guarantee you there's so many people going through the exact thing. Even if it's super convoluted, there's still somebody going through it. There's just so many people out there. And then we can intend to communicate from the heart to the best of our current ability and be grateful for the opportunity to try. Slogan 41, 2 activities, one at the beginning, one at the end. So it's very traditional practice to, first thing in the morning, orient yourselves towards what you value. Like, wake up and you do that first before you even get out of bed. And then the traditional teaching is to actually, at the end of your day, right before you go to bed, review your day to see how it went and see if there are things you might need to address. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't review my day. I find that kind of heavy. So I've never wanted to do that or engage in that. But what I do before bed is the same thing that I do first thing that I wake up, which is repeat that intention. And for me, it's not like some random sentence. I did a lot of a practice called Chenrezig, which is like Bodhisattva of compassion. So his mantra, which you've heard before, is Om Mani Padme Hum. And I was trained for that to have a lot of meaning about being a compassionate being. So I say Om Mani Padme Hum first thing when I wake up and last thing before bed. So it doesn't have to be, it can be whatever, phrase or image or something that means something to you. And by doing that first thing when you wake up and last thing before bed, it sort of just reminds me like of what's important, and to let go of everything that's not important for that, as the underlying primary driving goal in life. Slogan 42, whichever of the 2 occurs, be patient. I'm going to explain that because I hate any teaching that mentions patience. But it's actually good. Okay, so this means that whether things are pleasant or unpleasant, whether we're happy or we're suffering, we want to apply patience. But let's talk about what patience really is. It's not passive, and it isn't resignation. Instead, think of patience as the strength and the wisdom that knows that things will only, ever, only unfold at their own pace, no matter how much I want to speed them up or you want to speed them up, right? So we can't rush the process of the world, we can't rush the process of other people, and we can't rush the process of ourselves. We can act as we see fit, but then we need to see what develops from there over time. So this isn't saying don't act, but then, like, you know, things actually take time to unfold, sadly. Um, but knowing that is super helpful. Okay. Slogan 43, observe even at the risk of your life. So we need to commit to pay attention to our own lives. This is the only way to live fully and freely, to find meaning and harmony in this precious life. It's the only way. And it's all too easy to get lost in the details of surviving or get bored by the repetitive aspects of a daily routine and miss the opportunity to really care about and orient toward that which we matter, that which we value most. Norman Fisher says it this way: live your life with your eyes and heart wide open, no matter what. Slogan 44, train in the 3 difficulties. So the focus of Buddhism is to train ourselves to not be derailed by habitual, reactive, unskillful behavior, and instead to find more skillful responses when we find ourselves being triggered. The 3 difficulties are: first, notice when we get stuck, where we get stuck, like which situations, what kinds of circumstances get you going. And then to be willing to act differently in these situations is the second. And the third is to aspire this to make this a way of life. So first, notice where we get stuck. Second, be willing to try different behaviors. And third, aspire to make this a way of life. So this is a summary of Lojong as well as a summary of Buddhism. We first need to realize when we've lost the plot, and this can be hard because we often feel so comfortable and justified in our reactions, right? They're habitual, right? So they feel right. And then we need to relax our old way of reacting and look to see, is there something else I could try? Be as open-minded and creative as you can in looking for a more loving and useful response. And I always try to think of it as like trial and error. Like, I'm going to try something that's not going to work. I'm going to try something else and it's not going to work. But along that willingness, the old thing I was doing didn't work anyway. So it's probably not going to be worse. And then eventually, sooner or later, sometimes sooner, sometimes later, I might hit on something that's like, oh, this works with that person in this circumstance. And it was worth taking the risk of trying something new to end up with something that works. Then when we find things that work better, we need to make these our new habits. We need to kind of get in the groove and get comfortable with them, even if they were going out on a limb and, I don't know, saying, telling someone you felt uncomfortable instead of just swallowing it, or, whatever that thing is for you. To allow it to become the new habit. And of course, we gain confidence because it worked, right? It worked in that one situation. It might work with that other person I've been avoiding, telling what's going on, right? So, and as we get more comfortable, it becomes the new habit. Don't try to be perfect, and be as patient as you can with the process. Is that word again? Slogan 45, take on the 3 principal causes. So these are the 3 primary things that guide us on the path. The first of the 3 principal causes is having either a good teacher and or friends and community to practice with. And just on a note, that doesn't mean that you need a guru. I don't think Americans need a guru. I don't find that Buddhists and meditators want that as much as yogis, who think that if they don't find the right guru, somehow they're not gonna succeed in life. But I don't think that we're wired so much to want or need a guru. And I'm not sure that when we have one, we even interact with them all that well. It's more, ends up more like giving power over than sort of taking, um, than sort of benefiting from it. So think of this, it's nice to have someone to talk to about your practice, but it's also just nice to have friends who are coming along with you. So the person who's your teacher might be someone in a podcast, of course it's nice to have a real live human to talk to, but what's so remarkable about this time in the history of, let's say, Buddhism, but whatever practice, is this free access to like unlimited teachings from all these amazing people all the time. So, great if you have their ear, but I think it's enough to get good teachings and have friends to talk to about it. Which is good news, because not everyone in every state has any access to real, these amazing teachers. It's just the practice is exploding everywhere, and there's pockets of people who have real access. But the truth is, then if your teacher gets famous, they don't have time for you anymore anyway. I mean, unless you're in the super tight inner circle. So it's just sort of unrealistic, I think. So that was the first, good teacher and friends and community. The second is to apply the teachings and practice to our own mind. So our happiness and the happiness of those around us depends on this, and nobody can do it for us. The third is to acknowledge what's called our precious human birth, which is our opportunity to practice in this lifetime. So no matter, I know that things happen and it's not always perfect, but in general, we have all that we need to practice in this life. We're alive, our basic needs are met, and we have the motivation to live a good life. Again, or else you would be doing something else with your time other than sitting here on Zoom, right? So we want to use this to appreciate and value this life, remembering how fortunate we are to be able to do this in this life. And it's not possible for everyone. There are people working 8 jobs, who are not, which doesn't mean that, if you were to find yourself in that circumstance, that you couldn't practice during the day and stuff, but like to just have the leisure, even, to spend 15 minutes a day sitting, for example, not everyone can do that. So we want to appreciate that, even if we, might think there are other things we could have to make it easier. We want to appreciate that we have enough. So these 3 are the foundations and the guiding forces of our practice. Slogan 46, pay heed that the 3 never wane. So these are the 3 principal causes we just talked about. We don't want to lose track of these supports for our practice. We want to be grateful for what we have and maintain our commitment to the practice long term. And we want to connect with spiritual friends to fuel our continuing path. And again, that doesn't have to be some great teacher. It can just be someone in this Zoom who you connect to and you check in with every once in a while, Slogan 47. Keep the 3 inseparable. So now this is a different 3. So practice wholeheartedly with your thoughts, your speech, and your actions. Those are the 3 here. So we want to orient all 3 toward the goal of communicating from the heart. Everything we think, say, and do has the power to create either separation or connection. And we want to harmonize our being in the world and avoid that feeling of inner conflict when you think one thing and you say another. And if you think back to a time when you did that, it just doesn't, that's not really integral harmonious living. And then you send mixed messages to people and they get confused, and different results end up coming out of communication. It just doesn't work. Slogan 48, train without bias in all areas. And I want to, good luck. This is like an orientation, but it's sort of unlikely to actually, really, really, really never have bias, because we're biased by our history. We're biased by our preferences. We're biased by our prejudices, our resentments, and our misperceptions. Okay. So, but that all being said, a key part of our spiritual path is uncovering where reality is different from our understanding, and then being willing to see more fully and realistically from a broader perspective. So we just have to keep uncovering biases. And they can be all kinds of like even little things, like just people who bug you, or, we don't even realize we're biased against, certain kinds of personalities, or whatever it is. So to sort of see, to be looking, do I ignore, that person because they bug me? Well, maybe, I need to be more relaxed around that person. So this is instrumental in helping us to wake up, to grow up, and to become more compassionate and open-hearted. And we don't want to leave any part of our experience out of this exploration. So we want to be looking all the time. Where am I finding bias? Where am I preferring this person over that person? And how is that creating, what kinds of problems in relationship and groups? Slogan 49, always meditate on whatever provokes resentment. So this is one of my favorite parts of Lojong, that we practice with that which is most difficult. First of all, it gives us something positive to do when we're feeling resentful, which is really helpful, okay? And it's a huge relief from either ruminating or complaining. And for the people around us too. And then it makes it possible to improve or resolve the situation with kindness and understanding, because we're purposely giving it thoughtful and open-hearted attention. If we instead act when we're resentful, we're guaranteed to get a negative result. If we instead apply these teachings and practices, we have the opportunity at least to turn a challenging situation into an occasion for healing. And we don't want to have like unrealistic expectations and think every time I find something challenging, I'm going to find some brilliant solution and solve everything, and, rainbows and hearts are going to, whatever. We're really looking for incremental change, little improvements that add up to actually quite a bit. Like I used to be a mathematician, so I think about things this way. If you have two parallel lines and you just adjust one line away from the other, like the teeniest angle, they eventually become infinitely far apart, right? So really small changes add up to a different direction in life. Slogan 50, don't be swayed by external circumstances. Again, good luck, okay? But this is just a guideline. So do your best to open your heart to whatever arises and try not to shut down to anything. And that, I think, is a, long-term doable thing. Try not to have unrealistic expectations, as I'm saying, and don't judge yourself for when you get lost. And in terms of don't being swayed, Norman Fisher suggests it's okay to sway like bamboo, to be flexible, but have solid roots. So thinking of like always being completely like, oh, nothing affects me, I think is unrealistic. But to become more able to be conscious and aware and present with challenging situations is totally doable. Slogan 51, this time, practice the main points. So this time is now, which is the moment what we have to work with. Remember the teachings now and turn toward your difficulty in a relaxed way and offer your heartfelt best in the moment. And let awakening your heart mind be your primary intention for this lifetime. And again, in your own words for that. Slogan 52, don't misinterpret. Again, good luck. These are strong. These are guidelines. So we need to be willing to slow down and pay attention before we rush into acting. Be as open-minded as you can. Listen and observe and consider what you might be missing. Even that alone, like this intention to pay more attention instead of assuming, is super helpful. So try not to assume that someone has negative intentions just because they said something or did something that might be scary or not what you were hoping for. And that can be hard because we want to contract. Someone says something that sounds, you're like, it's not what I want to hear from this person. And we can just shut down and say, they just want to hurt me. instead of listening and saying, like, what are they saying? What if it's actually something helpful? Which I have found when I can stop contracting and listen. It's like, oh, they're telling me what they need. And I can do that, right? I just need to not feel so defensive. So it's very easy to misinterpret when we're triggered. So this is encouragement to relax and be interested in what's actually happening. Slogan 53, don't vacillate, which means don't go back and forth between being open-hearted and shutting down or going into defensive protection mode. So again, we're trying, right? We're doing our best to work to maintain a stable and kind mind under all circumstances to the best of our ability. And to help this, try to stay enthusiastic and grateful in your practice. Slogan 54, train wholeheartedly. So life is precious, and this is our chance to live well and feel good about our lives. Pema Chodron says it this way: live the teachings, digest them, take them to heart, make them your own, share them with others. And it's important to remember, share them with others doesn't mean like sit your family down and tell them they have to meditate, or your partner or something. It's really through the experience, right, of being more compassionate to them and then giving them the opportunity to be different with you. I can't tell you how many times I talk to people and they're like, well, you know, my partner, long-term partner doesn't meditate and I think they need to. And it's like, show them how well it works by transforming yourself. And I guarantee you they will if it suits them, and they won't if it doesn't. But, you know, you got to convince them that it's worth doing, and that's the way to do it, I think. Trungpa Rinpoche says it this way: trust yourself and the practice. Slogan 55, we're getting there. Liberate yourself by examining and analyzing. So we need to look at our own mind. And this is the key to growth and to harmonious living. Be gentle, but be honest. You're your own best teacher. And this doesn't mean don't, you know, call a friend and say, what do you think's going on with this, right? But deep down, it has to be your knowledge, your wisdom. So when things are challenging, look to see if you're making them worse in some way, and look to see if there might be a different understanding or attitude that could lead to a more freeing response. Slogan 56, don't wallow in self-pity. So feeling sorry for ourselves makes things feel worse. It also reflects that we're thinking about ourselves as the center of the universe, worse off than everyone else, right, in that moment, when actually lots of people around the world have exactly the same problem that we do. And all people have some kind of difficulty or suffering. So it normalizes difficulty and also helps to connect us to, you know, to not being alone. So we're not alone here in being human. We're all in this together. This understanding brings a poignant but uplifting feeling of connectivity to the challenges of life. And it can be hard to remember to do that, you know, when things get tough. But if we do, it's so helpful, so supportive. Slogan 57, don't be jealous. So comparing mind is so demoralizing. We want to try to practice even empathetic joy, being happy for others in their successes. Orienting towards joy brings us well-being and overcomes our self-centered bias. We can be happy for anything positive, not just when it happens to us or people we love. Slogan 58, don't be frivolous. So I think it's awesome to be silly and waste time doing fun things. So that's not what this means. But it means don't be shallow, don't be superficial, and don't be thoughtless. We don't want to waste this life without diving deep and connecting to what's meaningful to us. Slogan 59, don't expect applause. So this final slogan says, open your heart mind for your sake and for the sake of the world, not to get the approval of other people. It's fine to enjoy praise, and I do encourage giving praise, to other people. It doesn't mean that praise is bad, but don't look for it as your objective. Instead, let your own increase in love and connection be its own reward. There's nothing more meaningful or beneficial to the world. The truth is sometimes people are going to see that you're being more wise or whatever, and sometimes they're not. And, so what, really, if you know. And it's this internal, as we said, I forget which slogan or even which day, but it's your sense of your life that makes your life. It was the assess in day 5. It's how we feel about our own lives that is the life we lead. So it doesn't really matter. Of course, I want other people to appreciate what I'm doing or whatever, but that's not, that can't be the driving goal, or else it would be, what if they don't notice? Then I don't want to be, I don't want to be down about that. I got through that in record time. I thought that was going to take me a lot longer. I think it was the caffeine I had right before. So anyway, thoughts, comments about any of those 21 slogans or anything that's come up for you over the previous 6 days as well. Jay?
Yeah. One, this has been a really interesting experience. I'd like to say I don't know how I got here, but that's just kind of how my life works out. Um, but I find teachings like this really, really interesting because to me, overall, this is, how do we live intentionally and embrace self-awareness? And when I think about, I'm here in the States, I assume everybody else is here in the States, but there's just nothing like this that exists in the West in terms of, a structured way of how you can live life, that everyone kind of is on board with, but that takes into account self-awareness. And from all the things I've studied or gotten bits of, this has just been really reaffirming and confirming some of the directions I've been in, especially through this past year. Just deploying self-awareness on a massive level, but having even all these 59 slogans to go through takes it point by point, and I think allows you to have space for yourself and hold space for others in a very constructive way. So it's been really cool. Thank you.
Wonderful. And I think this is why, especially with, you know, all the things that have gone on in the last year, people really are turning to Eastern practices more and more. And they already were before things got really crazy. But yeah, there's a reason that meditation is Googled more often than yoga now, actually. Um, just gives you a sense of, um, yeah, of the fact that people need it, you know. We need it.
What I really appreciated about these teachings is that they're prompts instead of the wisdom being kind of lost in long verbiage and, oh, where did I see that? What am I thinking? They're good prompts. And a lot of them I think are, um, they make sense, and they're things that we already know, but maybe we've forgotten. And so just seeing these prompts and being able to interpret them the way we need for our own lives, to me, is a big deal. And it just makes it so much more accessible because then it's understandable. So I find these very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's such a key point, to take, take the ones that work for you in a way they work for you. And then, down the road, different ones might call to you for different reasons, but, allowing it to be relevant instead of, um, yeah, just kind of rote. Wonderful.
I love what Jerry and Debbie both said. Thank you so much. I took this as a retreat a bit, so um, it was quite an experience. I haven't retreated in a while, and it wasn't as silent as I normally would go for. And yet, from day one to now, my heart has shifted so much. And it was like all of this stuff that I remember, right? I remember it, but it's so different to practice it and to feel it and to go there. So I highlighted 42, 43, and 44. Now I'm kind of not sure why, so give me a second. Oh, I remember. So those were observe, oh, sorry, whichever of the two occurs, be patient, observe even at the risk of your life, train in the three difficulties. And actually there was a different one too. Anyway, they're all so good. But what I've really noticed, I've done a lot of loving kindness and compassion work, and it when I really dove in deep, like dove in, not just thinking, but really went through the work of it internally, everything changed. My relationships changed so much. It just like it was so beautiful and so amazing. And this time, it was all about like loving me and all that's there for me. And I didn't realize like that can just keep going. And some of these little parts I've been stuck on lately of like, why do I keep overworking? Why do I keep saying yes when I know I'd prefer to take a little time for me? And it all became very clear during this retreat. Like, oh, wow, these parts that I wasn't honoring and loving. And yeah, it's just been an incredible week for that, and just remembering the importance of all of this and of each other and doing it. So thank you guys so much. This has been wonderful.
Anyone have anything else?
I really like these slogans. I totally agree with you, Debbie, that they're like prompts. And I think that that's super helpful. And I love what you the different highlights that people take. Um, and I think the one that really, something that really touched me today is making the smallest change, like those two parallel lines, just changing the angle, like just a hair, not even, makes the biggest difference in the end. And I've gone through so much transformation, or just like my whole world has changed. I moved countries, and the past year has been just a huge change. And yet the things that are making the biggest change are the really small internal ones. And one wouldn't think that, because it's like I've just totally upended my entire world. But when you say don't wallow in self-pity, and don't be jealous, and don't be frivolous or shallow, that's the unwillingness to dig deep, or don't expect applause, like I look at those and I think to myself, really, it's just like loving me and my path and my rhythm. Because there's so many times I look at my world in the past year and think, oh, I should be at this point, or I wish I were. And really, it's almost like me judging how I need to, how fast I need to move in the world. And that's not for me to decide at all. So just those parallel lines that I will really take with me, because out of all the big changes I've made, it's like, just trust the process. And that is probably the biggest change I can make for me right now.
Beautiful. All right, let's do a little practice. We've come to the sort of full practice today of Lojong, compassion for all beings. I love that we've sort of worked our way up to this, because teaching compassion to all beings. I've done it lots of times to kind of cold groups, like after a yoga class or something. And it can be so overwhelming, but I feel like we've trained for it so thoroughly that it's a positive experience rather than scary. So anyway, it's just nice to have had the time with you all to come to this beautiful place. So take your time arranging your body. And when you're there, we'll close our eyes. So we'll begin, as always, dropping the mind down into the body. Maybe tuning into the felt sense of your lower body touching your cushion or your chair, that sense of grounding, or maybe it's your feet on the floor, depending how you're sitting. Maybe you're lying down and it's your whole body touching the earth. And tuning into that natural connection to the solidity, that felt sense of groundedness, lower in the body. And staying grounded and connected, the spine growing tall, unless you're lying down, in which case, just staying with that connectedness. And this natural lift to the spine gives us a sense of dignity, alertness, uprightness, integrity, quality of being awake, energized. And then softening around the energized spine. And lately, I don't know why, I like to start at the crown of the head and work through my scalp and my brain and face, and then down through the shoulders, arms, hands, torso, and then I really like to spend some time in the belly. And this quality of sitting up but relaxing the belly allows the breath to settle into a natural rhythm. And of course, lying down and relaxing the belly does the same. And so many great teachers use the soft belly as like the primary focus of practice. Stephen Levine, even Joan Halifax, just allowing the belly to soften. It's like opening to the world in some way. Even though we're talking about the heart, I think the belly is crucial to this, relaxing, letting go of our armoring as we're ready, like only in the way that we're choosing. So collecting ourselves here around the breathing, in the body, alert, relaxed, opening, softening, grounded. And now from the center of your chest, begin to wish yourself well. Radiate love and care from the center of your chest throughout your body on the exhale. Saturate and permeate your body with kindness. Now expand this out to all of the folks in our group. On your natural exhale, wish everyone else in the Zoom and in the video watching later, wish them well. Offer them kindness. Offer them health and peace. Wish them joy. Wish them happiness. And now expand this out to all beings. Exhale warmth and care out to all beings in all directions. Radiate good wishes out from your body. Be a source of kindness. Now I'd like you to acknowledge that there is suffering and difficulty around the world. Consider that all beings experience challenging emotions and situations. Gently begin to bear witness to this difficulty. On the natural inhale, acknowledge the difficulty of beings. As it touches your heart, it's instantly transformed into care and warmth, which you then send out on the natural exhale. Inhale their difficult situations. Exhale, spaciousness, peace, and ease. Inhale their challenging emotions. Exhale your compassion, your care for their feelings, wishing them happiness. Be gentle. Bear witness. We're not trying to end the suffering of the world, simply to acknowledge it, to care about it. And to say that differently, we're not trying to cure it, but rather to heal. So healing has a quality of wholeness to it, which happens from not avoiding the difficulty, not being afraid to turn toward it. We can tune into the underlying joy and connectedness. And we want to try to not get overwhelmed, but rather remember the transformative quality of our hearts. And we want to learn that we can trust this. So open slowly. Imagine living from this courageous and open place, with your heart able to perceive suffering and to offer out the willingness to be with pain and meet it with compassion. And now we'll release the Lojong practice. And return to observing the sensations of breathing right here in the body. Feeling the fullness of the body, the three-dimensionality. Relaxing here, right in the middle of the body, around the breathing. So any comments or thoughts about the meditation or about anything else?
It was amazing to me the people who came to me in that meditation. It was really special because there's some people that I hadn't thought about in a long time. And all of a sudden there they were. And some of it's going to make me cry, but it was really heartfelt. So thank you.
Karen, I don't know if this has been asked or presented already, but do you have any resources or books, core reference texts that we could follow up with some of this?
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Perfect. So my favorite books or authors on the Lojong are Pema Chodron. Lindsay has my book, so I don't have the titles. The two that I'm going to say first, the Pema Chodron and the Norman Fisher. But if you look, so Pema Chodron actually has two. One is an audio, and that one doesn't really go in order at all. She just kind of wanders through. And then the book is more organized. I enjoyed both. And then if you're into the more like Tibetan angle, traditional, which suits some people, I found them to be less applicable, but I use them more as references when the other two weren't really orienting me. One is a Trungpa Rinpoche book, and the other is Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, which is he's super old school, but kind of one of my favorites. But really, Pema Chodron and Norman Fisher are the ones that take these teachings and make them really applicable to us now. And I looked in some other resources too, and I didn't like any of them actually. So, but if you find any others that you like, let me know. Pema Chodron's really the most kind of famous for teaching them. And Norman's book is new, like in the last year or two, or I guess it's paperback, so maybe longer than that, but relatively new. Whereas Pema Chodron's been teaching this as one of her primary things for a long time. And remember, Norman Fisher is Zen, so it's going to be a totally different take than all of the other resources I mentioned. But that's kind of fun, you know. I really like taking things from different traditions.
I have this one that Karen lent me, which
That's
is
the
one
Trungpa
of the
Rinpoche, yeah.
more traditional ones. She named that one the Chogyam Rinpoche, and Pema does the intro
Yeah.
for this.
He's her teacher, yeah.
And she says that like it was on, she put each one on cards.
Yeah.
And then every day she'd pull one card and then read about it and then work to practice it. And stuff like that really works for me personally. So I kind of like that idea, to just delve a little bit deeper into each one or for that day. So I kind of like that.
You can buy her, I think they're her cards. And that's how I first saw, that's how back with our first meditation teacher, Ange and I shared the teacher. That's how I first saw Lojong done, was with the cards. You just pick a random card and that would be your practice for the day. So if you're that kind of person, go for that. I'm sure you could make your own or buy them if you want to support her. I don't know how much she gets off of each purchase, but Jennifer.
Something that's so unique about you, Karen, is bringing these teachings to the West and acknowledging that our the way we look at things in the West is simply different, and that we weren't raised, or that our culture, we aren't enculturated around a guru, or because for so long these teachings have been so foreign to me, and I haven't been able to apply them to my life as much as I understand what I'm supposed to be thinking and feeling. And I'm wondering if you have any authors who have inspired you in that way. There's a part of me that acknowledges that this is your take on it, and that's why it's so powerful for me, because you've drawn from so many different sources, and I'm so grateful to you for your research, because it's so grounded and so sourced and so powerful and so transformative, just your speaking the teachings. So I'm so grateful to you for that. And I'm just wondering if there's sort of something that pops into your head that might be of additional inspiration.
Yeah, the first thing that popped into my head was Jack Cornfield, just because he's so accessible. He's really not esoteric in any way. And that doesn't mean he hasn't had the esoteric teachings. Like if you read A Path with Heart, which is where I usually have people start, and Jennifer, I think I've already
Yeah.
suggested that in the past, but he, and I've heard him talk about, you know, many years later, having written that book, that he purposely stuck in the advanced things so people would know that he had done them, you know, because it was his first real book. But that when he teaches, it's just about life. You know, he's never trying to say something over people's heads. Like some of the Tibetan people, there's a, I'm not going to say any names, but like recently I was listening to some podcasts and I'm like, this guy's just trying to show off what he knows. You know, maybe he's insecure in some way, but nobody's following, you know? And Jack's the opposite. Like he's got all the knowledge, but he just talks about regular life, you know? So I find him inspiring. Sharon Salzberg also makes things very grounded. She's just, you know, she's just like your friend. Her books and her podcasts, both of them have the podcasts. Lots of stuff there. So those are my primary two, I think, for what you're talking about, which is just really having it be grounded and about life. If folks are more interested in like psychology, trauma, anxiety, stuff like that, then I might listen to Tara Brach. I couldn't do it for very long. I tried to, you know, I binge listened to people. And I couldn't, I had to stop listening to her because it's just not my area. Like I want to know that stuff, but it's not my primary interest. But if that's yours, she's fabulous. Oh, and Angela's actually doing a training right now with both Jack Cornfield and Tara Brach online. So there's a like 2-year mindfulness meditation course, which just started a couple months ago, but at some point Ange can let us know. I know it's good so far. So those are some great resources. And then, yeah, I would start there. And then you can always email me and say, okay, I'm done with those people. What should I listen to next? And I can give you suggestions, since I geek out on this stuff so much, obviously. Anything else from anyone? Okay, I have two final quotes for you. This first one is one of my favorites of all time. This is James Baldwin. He says, "Love takes off the masks that we fear we cannot live without and know we cannot live within." He says, "I use the word love here not merely in the personal sense, but as a state of being or a state of grace. Not in the infantile American sense of being made happy, but in the tough and universal sense of quest and daring and growth." And then from the Tao Te Ching, "I have just three things to teach: simplicity, patience, compassion. These three are your greatest treasures. Simple in actions and in thoughts, you return to the source of being. Patient with both friends and enemies, you accord with the way things are. Compassionate toward yourself, you reconcile all beings in the world." Thank you so much for your time and all your just incredible insights and sharing. And I just appreciate this opportunity so much to spend this time with you. And I hope I see you again soon.